Now it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you have the sum of products, and then you have to operate upon a activation function. Now this activation function is varied depending upon the data set, depending upon how many record you have, how many features you have, and how deep is your architecture. So your deep learning models have the different activation function, softmax function. Okay, you have this ReLU, which is a rectified linear unit. This is one activation function. Sigmoidal function. This is very popular. Tan hyperbolic, tan H. That's also popular. So these are varied. Okay, so now we were talking about this example where we're talking about a linear separable data. Now so far in the decision tree model or in the naive-Bayes classifier, we were not concerned about this data being linearly separable or not, etc. So what are we trying to find out? So you assume that data is distributed something like this. Okay, so this is what we talked about as the AND function, right? So you have 3 zeros and 1 when you have a 2 input AND gate, and this data is linearly separable. So can I have a separator? You can think of this as some kind of a partitioning that will partition the positive from the negative or vice versa. So that data is called as linearly separable data. Now we had this example called as XOR. So this XOR is non-linearly separable because you cannot have a straight line to separate out this data. Okay, so you're going to basically find out means of handling this non-linearly separable data, because for all you might know, when you have so many features and you try to plot them in a n-dimensional space, so you will basically end up with some kind of a clustering or some kind of an outlier where you will be in a position to not being able to separate out the data using a linear separator. So that is the predominant, that is a natural scenario. Data being linearly separable is a rare scenario. That is, if data everything is proper, then you probably have data being linearly separable. What if all your data is outlier? You are in trouble. Okay, so that is where you have to increase your features, and as you increase your features, there is a possibility that data might become linearly separable, but again there is a problem of curse of dimensionality, so which is a problem. Okay, so we talked about this example where this is how you try to learn your weights. You assign random weights and then you try to change the weights. Now we had only 4 records, so we were able to change the weights at random and we know what is the outcome. Supposing you have so many situations, then you will not be in a position to change this weight similar to how we changed yesterday. So that is where you have to have an algorithm to change these weights, and that is what is called as the gradient descent approach. Okay, so that we'll come back to that in a minute. Before that, we'll see how does the weight basically changes. So the weights are typically added as Wi plus delta Wi. So how do I increment this weight? There is a hyperparameter. Now this hyperparameter is a term which we have not been using, which we have not used so far. The hyperparameter is a initialization parameter. Now for every machine learning model, I already told you the naive-Bayes algorithm is not a learning model per se. There is no learning happening. You are simply computing the probability. Similarly, when you look at the decision tree model, you are not learning. So here there is a parameter called as the learning rate. This learning rate is a hyperparameter. Okay. Similarly, the initial values of the weight can also be the hyperparameter. So Wi, initial value, which is set at random, that can also be a hyperparameter. Now, how do I modify the weights in general? There is a learning parameter, and this is T is the target and O is the observed output. And you have this feature called as Xi. Xi is your value. So how do I change this value? So delta Wi, that is the change of weight, will basically be done with reference to the learning rate eta. Okay, and this is T minus O. So what is T? T is the target. For example, 0 is the target. If you do A or B, 0 is the target. 1 is the target. One is a target and one is a target, and this is your x1 and x2 features. Okay. Now, supposing you choose eta as a very small constant between 0 and 1 typically. Okay, it's a positive constant between 0 and 1. It's a learning rate. So this is going to decide how it is going to be changing. Supposing this is going to be 0.1, for example, say. Okay, again this is set at random. So you can, this will decide how slow or how fast is your data going to converge. Okay, so when I say converge, I'm talking about scenario where you are expecting, you will get your expected result immediately. Here this is 0 and 1. So what is T? T is your target, which is 0. And what is observed? Supposing you have observed this 0 to be a 0 itself, then this becomes 0 and minus 0. So there is no change in your weight vector. Supposing you get a 1 as against a 0, then this will become 0 minus of minus 1, which is minus 1. So you have to change your weight vector delta wi with minus 1 with reference to your minus 1 into learning rate, of course. And this is going to be your xi, which is your input. So depending upon this one, your corresponding weight vector will change. Okay. So similarly, you have to change this for all your weight vectors. So W0, W1, W2 will be done for all your input. So correspondingly, Wi will be changed. Okay. The the weight vector of the ith input will be varied in accordance with the learning rate and the input of the ith component, and then using this target and observe. Supposing your target is 1 and your observed is also 1, then it will become 1 minus 1, 0. So there is no change in weight required. Supposing your target is 1 and your observation is 0, which is not correct. So you will get 1 minus 0 as 1. So you have to increment your weight to a greater extent. Okay. So that is what we basically do. So T minus O is 0, then change of weight vector is 0. Otherwise, it has to be modified. Now, after modification, supposing in our example, whatever we did yesterday, it handled these two inputs, but it didn't handle this input. So we kind of modified the weight vectors to suit that. And then finally, we checked whether the modified weight vector, does it suit or not for all the records. Okay. So that is what is very important. That also we should try to do it. So you can prove that it can converge. If the data is linearly separable and if eta is sufficiently large, sufficiently small, it will definitely converge. Okay. So how does it converge? The convergence is because of the gradient descent rule, and there is one more rule called as the delta rule. Okay. You can, the perceptron, that is a single neuron model, can find the weight vector very successfully if the training data is linearly separable. So, supposing if the data, this delta rule is applied in order to overcome this difficulty. So, this delta rule basically will converge based on the best fit approximation when the data is non-linearly separable. Okay, so this will definitely do it. Supposing it is not linearly separable, then you have to go in for an alternate rule. So this delta rule typically uses the gradient descent to search, and this is the fundamental behind the backpropagation algorithm. So what you do is, you do not simply call it as T minus O. Okay. So just now I said delta Wi will be eta into T minus O into Xi. Now this is a simple, so you have to find out for every input the corresponding weight vector modification and then apply that and to get it. Now what happens is the gradient descent approach tries to find out this output as a sum of products. Okay, and then it learns this weight vector modification to the weight vector as TD minus OD the whole square. Now what is TD? T is a target which is basically available as part of the supervised learning algorithm, and OD is the observation, and this is summed up for all your data records and for each of the weight vector W. Okay, this is summed up. This is called as the minimize. This is called as the squared error, and it is called as half squared error. Okay, this is half squared error. Now you are talking about error as TD minus OD the whole squared. because you're talking about assigning it as +1 or -1. Okay, if you're assigning it as +1 or -1, if you get a +1 here, okay, if the target is a +1 and you get a -1 here, okay, so then this will become +1 which is 2, and there is an alternate one. If the target is -1 and you get a -1 here, okay, so that will become +1 which is 0. But if you get a +1, okay, the target is -1 and you get a +1 here, then you will basically, hello, hello, no, may I know who is this? I didn't understand you. No, you know, I don't know. I am not handling that subject. Whom do you want to speak to, sir? No, no. Whom do you want to speak to, sir? Whom do you want to? This is Rajeshwari. Okay. Oh, okay, sir. Sorry, I kind of got confused. Okay, I'm in the middle of the class. Can I? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'll call you, sir. Okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry, there was a confusion. So this TD minus OD. So supposing you are having a squared value here because you do not want to cancel out. Supposing you have a +1 and a categorized as +1, then there is no problem. If a -1 is categorized as -1, there is no problem. Supposing a +1 is categorized as -1, then if you don't have the square, then it will become 1 + 1, 2. Okay. And supposing you have a -1 which is categorized as +1, then it will become -2. So these two will get cancelled. Okay, if you just don't square it. So that is why you are trying to square it to the maximum possible, and then that is halved. Okay, so that is why it is called as the half squared error. So this value is the basis for incrementing the weight in the gradient descent model, because this will handle even if data is going to be non-linearly separable. So here this is your change of weight vector, which is nothing but the change of weight vector for the individual weight components, dou E by dou W naught, dou E by dou W1, etc. up to dou E by dou Wn, and then the change of the delta W, that is the change of weight vector, will be minus eta into delta of E of W. There is a minus sign here because it will try to converge. Okay, the value keeps decrementing, that is your basis. So it is defined like that, and where each of the delta Wi is defined as minus eta into dou E by dou Wi. So that is what it, if you substitute for delta EW as this component here, you will know that each of your delta Wi will be minus eta into dou E by dou Wi. Now we have to find out that. So dou E by dou Wi is, you know what is E, okay, and you can apply the derivative here on E, and then if you apply this, so you have half into summation dou by dou Wi of TD minus OD the whole square, and half into 2 into TD minus OD into dou by dou Wi of TD minus OD. So subtracting that TD minus OD into dou by dou Wi of, this is TD as it is, but what is OD? OD is the observed value, which is the activation function operated upon W into XD. So that is what is this. And if you do the corresponding, so this will have a W1, W2, W0, etc. up to Wn. So for the ith record, this others will be constant, so derivative will become 0. For only the ith record, you will have this Wi will become 1, so it will become only this XID. Okay, so you differentiate that. So, and you have to sum it up for all records. So summation of all the records, TD minus OD of XID. So supposing you have 1, 2, 3, 4, around 10 records, and you have the ith weight vector, that is X1 ith weight vector. So you find out this TD minus OD for all this, okay, and multiply it by minus XID, that will be dou E by dou WI, and substitute this here with respect to minus eta, the learning rate, and that will be the corresponding weight vector change for the ith record, weight vector. Okay, so this is going to be your scenario. So if for the gradient descent algorithm, you initialize delta WI to 0 to start with, and then you use some random weights, okay, and then for if it is a linear weight, you do this scenario. Supposing if it is a non-linear weight, then you apply the eta into summation TD minus OD. So you can probably think of this as T minus O into Xi. You are simply summing it up for all the records, okay. So that is your weight vector change. So for each linear weight unit, it is this basically, and for non-linear weight unit, it is going to be applying this particular situation. Okay. So you will see more on this scenario in the next course, where you will have, I'm going to talk about backpropagation algorithm, of course, but you will see more on the derivative, the mathematics behind the multiple layer perceptron and multiple layer architecture in the next level course. So you can have the perceptron training rule as success if you have linearly separable training data and eta is sufficiently chosen to be small. This you can also use linear unit training rule uses gradient descent. So you can have a small learning rate, and this will work even if training data contains noise and the data is going to be non-linearly separable. So now how do I apply this gradient descent? There are two modes of applying. One is called as the batch mode, other one is called as the incremental mode. Okay. In the batch mode, what happens is you run all the records together, okay, compute the gradient for the dth record, and then you apply the weight, and then you keep on doing it. So you basically do it in small batches, and then you try to find out the total change of weight vector. Supposing in the incremental mode, for each training example D, okay, so you compute this value, compute the gradient, modify the weight vector, and apply it for the second record, okay, then do that second record and then apply it for the third record, and so on and so forth. That is what is incremental mode. In batch mode, you run it together for all the weight vector, do a summation, and then try to update your weight vector and run it for the second time, and then for the third time, etc. So incremental mode is operating upon each record as a batch, whereas batch mode will do incremental mode. Okay, batch mode will apply incremental mode as though all records are done together. So this is what incremental gradient descent can approximate batch gradient descent arbitrarily closely if eta is made small enough. So incremental is for each record you do it, modify the weight vector, apply for the second record, and so on. Whereas batch mode will use the same weight vector, apply it for all records, run it as a batch, compute the error, modify the weight vector, apply for the next iteration. Okay. So that is what is this. So you have difference, standard gradient and stochastic gradient, whatever we just now said. So this is the sigmoidal unit. Okay. Yeah, this is not there. This is a part of Mitchell textbook. I'm not talking about this. So so what happens is there is a very famous algorithm called as backpropagation algorithm, which has got hidden layers and gradients. So you assume, okay, the single perceptron is of no use, so you have to go in for a linear you have to go in for a multiple layer architecture. So in the multiple layer architecture, so what happens is you have to update the weight vector for the hidden unit separately, and you have to update the weight vector for the output layer separately, because the output layer will have to categorize it as true or false, or some output, yes or no, or say +1 -1, or is it supposing if it is digit recognition, is it a 0 or a 1 or a 2, etc. So you have to have one unit, output unit for each of the 0 or 1 or 2, etc. So you have to have typically 10 output units, okay, to recognize the digits from 0 to 9. Okay, so the hidden unit change of weight vector and the output unit change of weight vector will basically be different. Okay. So what happens is in the algorithm is called as the backward propagation algorithm. So there is a forward pass and there is a backward pass. Okay. In the forward pass, what happens is you assign weight vectors to at random, and then you compute your output and then keep propagating to the next layer, to the next layer, to the next layer, etc. And at the final output, okay, you might have a target which is observed and there is a target which is already known to you because this is a supervised model. So you do the difference and then compute the change of weight that should be updated, and you don't give it to the input directly. You try to back propagate the error. So the error gets back propagated. Okay, error gets back propagated, and that is given to the previous layer, and that is given to the previous layer, etc. And then till it reaches the first layer. So here what happens, it's called as compute deltas to weights from hidden layer to output layer, and you don't change any weights in the forward pass, compute the actual contributions within the hidden layers, and then you compute the delta in the last layer. So this is the back propagation algorithm. How do I get this change of weight vector? That is a mathematics behind that. Again, as I said, it will be discussed in the next. I do it as part of the ML course, but this course I am not doing because that will take 2 classes. So this is going to be your modification, and you have to update the weight vector for each of the Wij. That is the ith input to the jth unit. So J is the hidden layer number, okay, and I is the weight vector of the ith input, corresponding ith input given to the jth unit. So W11 means it is corresponding to x1, that is this I indicates as x1, that is for the first feature, and you are giving it to the first unit. Supposing if I say W12, it corresponds to the first features weight vector for the second unit. Okay, we will see that with an example. Now, Vika has all this training models, so you can try to do that. So here delta Wij is thought of as eta into delta j into xij. So again, delta j is going to be the change. That is what we are talking about as delta h or delta k, depending upon whether you're talking about the output unit or the hidden unit, and xij is the ith input to the jth unit. Okay. So here so the gradient descent algorithm is typically applied over the entire network. You can generate to arbitrary directed graphs. So you can include this change of weight vector. Now you can also include a weight momentum called as alpha. Now this alpha is also a hyperparameter. Okay, but the alpha is your choice whether to add it or not add it, which is depending upon the previous value of the change. Okay, and this will definitely converge, but it will take a lot of iterations to train and converge. So this is the problem with that scenario. Now let us do this back propagation. So here each neuron is composed of 2 units. The unit is basically a summer, and this is going to be a activation function. Okay, so that is what this circle basically tells you. I think I have already told you this is a summer, and you will operate upon a function which is the activation function operated upon this. Okay. So supposing you have W1 x1 here, W2 x2 here. So E will basically be W1 x1 plus W2 x2. You operate upon a function f of E, that is going to be my output Y. Okay. So this is going to be my back propagation algorithm. So where you talk about x1 and x2 as input units, okay, input signals, so that is assigned the corresponding target as Z. Okay, so what happens is, okay, so what happens is, for example, say I said Wij is there. Okay, so this is corresponding to W11 and this corresponds to W21. So X1 and X2 will be fed to all the blocks. I have got here, this is my first layer, this is my second layer, and this is my output layer. I will call it as third layer, okay, which is the output layer typically. So what happens is, it's a fully connected network here because every unit is connected to every other unit. So X1 is connected to all the three, X2 is also connected to all the three. And if I call this output as Y1, Y2 and Y3, that is connected to these two nodes. Okay, and this I call it as Z1 and Z2, that is connected to this last node. Okay, so what happens is W11, W21, okay. So W11, W21, W11 is multiplied by X1, W21 is multiplied by X2, and then you operate F1 on that is going to be called as Y1. Similarly, what will be this? This is W12, okay, and this will be W22, okay. Operated upon X1 and X2, that will be computed using F2 of E, and that will be called as output Y2, okay. And similarly, W13, sorry, W13 and W23, okay. So this will be WX11, WX21, okay, which is given to F1. So W13 and W23, which is operated upon X1 and X2 respectively, okay. You multiply this and add, and then you apply a function F3 on this, that is going to be called as Y3, okay. So you have Y1, Y2, Y3, and that will be given again with respect to this one. Now when I look at Y1, my W is going to be different, okay. So that is what we are talking about here. So here you have F1, F2, F3, which is going to be called as W12, W22. This is W13 and W23, which is given to this particular block. Okay, I can call this as W14 because I'm giving it to the fourth block. Okay, W14, and this is going to be W24. Okay, and this is W34 and this is 34, this is 35. This is going to be W15, W24 and W25 respectively. Okay, this is going to be called as F4 and F5 are operating on that. It is going to be called as Z1 and Z2. Okay. So here, this is getting forward propagated to start with. Okay. So you, this is W13, W23. I think I already told you this, which is Y3, and Y4 will be W14 of Y1, W24 of Y2, and W34 of Y3. So you get three inputs here, and you operate upon a function F4 to get Y4 as the output. Similarly, for Y5, you have W15, W25, and W35, which is multiplied correspondingly with Y1, Y2, and Y3. Now, Y1 is what already? Y1 is already F1 of WX1, W1 X1, W2 X, W1 to X2. Okay, and what is Y2? Y2 is already W1 to X1 and W2 to X2, that is operated upon to get Y2 and so on. So you will get Y4 and Y5. Okay, and Y4, Y5 will be given to this one. So you call this as W46 and W56 respectively, which will be my actual output Y. Now this Y will have a deviation. So call it as the change delta, which is the target. This is your target, which is to be given found from the records. That is, you will be getting this Z from your supervised learning model. So whatever you observe, that is minus Y. So Z minus Y is your change of delta. This is your error signal, and that error gets propagated to W with a, because you have got output F6 of E using this W46 only and W56. So you propagate this as delta 4 as W46 into delta. You propagate W56 into delta as delta 5. Now again what happens? This delta 4 and delta 5 was derived from W14 and W15. Similarly, this delta 2 was done as W24 and 25 into delta 4, and delta 5 will propagate as delta 2, and delta 3 will be W34 of delta 4 plus W35 of delta 5. That will be delta 3. Okay. So then correspondingly delta 1 will be modified for this one with reference to this particular expression. This we already saw. W11 plus eta into delta 1. This is your change that will be modified into this variation. So dou by dou E of F1 of E into X1. So this is how you basically get modified, and that is modified accordingly like this. So this is your learning rate. This delta 2 is the error that is observed in the first model, and then you kind of apply that back. So once that is done, you can also apply the same thing with respect to W46, W56. You can also apply this for the other models also. So you can, I mean, essentially what you should do is this W14 delta 4, or let me see this. Yeah, this one you can apply delta 4, W14 into delta 4 as similar to this W14 plus eta into delta 1 delta 4 of this change with respect to Y1, Y2, Y3. You can apply and then get your values computed. Now this is the problem. So you have to keep on training back and forth in order to get this model established. So this is the model. Now what is the model again here? When you looked at naive Bayes, probability is your model. When you looked at decision tree, the tree is your model, which is actually a DNF of CNF. Disjunct normal form of CNF is your model. When you look at this ANN, what is your model? What have you actually found out as a model? Can somebody answer this? What are we computing by doing back and forth?
Error.
Error is there, right? We are finding out the error. Ultimately, what are we trying to modify?
The weights.
Weights. The weight vector is your model. So W is your model. So you started with a random weight of W0, W1, etc. up to Wn. Rather, I'll put it as Wij. Wij is your model. Okay? Because you have multiple layers, hidden layers are also there. So you have weight vectors as your model. You are computing the change in weight vector using a standard learning rate. So this eta is fixed, okay, by the individual as a hyperparameter. So you know you can start with an eta of 0.01, or you can start with an eta of 0.05. And then if you see that if it is 0.05, the convergence is larger, and if it is 0.01, the convergence is smaller. Again, I do not know what is how is it going to converge. But if it is not converging properly for 0.01, you can change it to 0.05 and see whether it is converging. It will definitely converge, but the time taken to converge will basically be different. So the model that we are constructing here is the weight vector model, because x1, x2 are already known to you. I will even give that weight vector Wij, comma eta, which is your learning rate. That is going to be your model. All the others are computed in the fly. Okay, so a feature input data set contains x1 to xn as the features. So you are basically finding out the weight vector wij, and that is not found at one shot. You are trying to start with an initialized random weight wij, and then you are trying to modify this weight vector based upon the error that is available or that is being found out by your algorithm. Okay, so your model in this case is going to be a weight vector along with the hyperparameter eta. So you are talking about the linear separator model, but if you are trying to consider this as a because it's simply finding out t minus o. Okay, if you do it as a batch process, then it's only t minus o. So if you find it as a batch process and then apply the differentiation, okay, then it will probably being approaching a gradient descent approach. So you can try this with Veka. You can try to train your model with Veka and see what is going to be your weight vectors. Okay. So this is a simple idea, and this is the basis for your deep learning models. There are other algorithms also, multi-layer perceptron algorithm. All these are based upon the backpropagation algorithm only. So that's why we have talked about backpropagation. Now, if you remember in the first class, in one of the first few slides of this neural network model, we talked about support vector machine also as one kind of a neural network architecture, and that is what we are going to basically do now here. Now, the next topic will be support vector machines, where it is a classic scenario for a binary classifier. Okay. Actually, you can convert this to an n-array classifier. Okay, by doing something like 1 against all. 1 against all. So you can have a huge data set and then you say, if it is not this category, it is some other category, and then recursively apply for the other scenario. So you have categorized as first class. Then you have a group of classes here. Use this alone and then apply support vector machine. Then you have a second class and then again a huge data. And then you again apply this 1 against all. So like that you can convert this to a n-array classifier also, but support vector machines are a traditional and a classic scenario of being a binary classifier. Okay, so it is based upon this scenario of being a linear separator, and it is you can convert this constraint optimization problem is one way of solving this algorithm. And then you try to project data into a high dimensional space and make it linearly separable. So this is again a classic scenario where you increase the number of features. Okay, increase the features to make it linearly separable. And it depends only on the number of training examples and not on the dimensionality of the kernel space. So this is the idea behind support vector machines. Now, where is it going to be used tremendously? I said this is a binary classifier for sure. So definitely it is going to be finding application in the medical domain. Okay. So medical diagnosis typically go in for support vector machines, or where you have definitely a binary class, that is does this person have diabetes or not, which is typically medical diagnosis. Should I water these plants or not in the agriculture domain? Okay, so should I water these plants? We have done some work on agriculture, like we have done a crop recommendation system for agriculture, where we looked at huge corpus of text was used as a basis for classification. So agriculture is one domain which is definitely trying to use support vector machines on a greater extent. Natural language processing tasks like the frequency of words or the bag of words representation for classification and categorization. Sentiment classification, a typical and traditional most popular algorithm amongst individuals. So sentiment, positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. Okay, so that there you can go in for support vector measurements. And supposing, that is why we call as text categorization, positive or negative. Is it sarcastic or not sarcastic? Does it have hash words, hash keywords or not, hashtags or not? Okay, so all these domains you can go in for support vector measurement. So we will see this example tomorrow in the next class basically. Not tomorrow, I am planning to review your abstract and then we will try to start your project by tomorrow itself. So I am not going to do a theory tomorrow, but next week I might eat into your lab. Let's see. So this is your classic tennis example. We will come back to this in the next class. So tomorrow all of you be present. We will be reviewing your abstract submitted for project, and then I'll give a go ahead or modification to your algorithm. So I will do it within the 2 hours itself. So you can be sure that you will be here because only 37 batches are there. Okay. So we will do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks guys.